Hush, Nubby. Hush, girl. No one's outside. Hush. Hey, carajo, ya cállese, ¿ah? Hey. Hush. No thing. No thing. Chicken. Hey. Not right now. If I'm telling you no thing, it's probably for a reason. Okay. That going on. Got this. Got my water. Well, I'm not quite done just yet. You don't know there, little buddy. Not quite done. Oh, my eye. Itchy, 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 itchy. Let's see if we can find something spooky.
channel, and we're getting pretty close to 1 million subs. Subscribing is free and it helps me out immensely, so please know that it is appreciated. I hope you all enjoy the video. An elevator stands alone in the depths of the woods. The sound of its low, electric hum grows steadily louder. It's subtle at first, but it rises to join the soft crunches of the sticks and ferns beneath our feet. The tiny fine hairs on the back of my neck raise up in response. There are no birds now, no insects, just the crunch and that soft, steady hum. The elevator stands as a steel obelisk in the center of a small clearing. Pine needles litter the ground. They are illuminated in faint blue and neon green. The elevators give small lights in the darkness. There are no buildings anywhere near here. Nothing urban or modern. Just endless dark forest. Leaves, pine, and this elevator. The doors are closed and there's a single shiny silver button embedded into the frame. I come to a stop, anxious, but trying not to show it. James and Maya stop too, though James steps the closest. Never the bravest, ever the dumbest. He takes another step and then another, and places his hand on the elevator door. He turns around to grin at us, the side of his face illuminated in the green glow. It's warm, he says quietly, his grin widening. Are you guys ready? Are we ready? What seemed like a great idea in the middle of the afternoon now seems foolish and dangerous. Hell, scary too. I'll admit it. I glance over to Maya. I'm not going to be the one to suggest that we chicken out, but if she brings it up, well, then I'll back her. I silently hope that she says something, but she does not. She only shifts silently from foot to foot, and James takes our silence as a response. He turns back to the elevator and presses the button. For a moment, nothing happens. I realize that I'm holding my breath and we wait, and we listen. A soft whirring joins the rumble beneath the ground. An LED X appears above the elevator's doors on a dusty screen, and then it quickly changes into a -4, and then -3, -2, -1, and 0. With a soft ding, the elevator doors slide open, revealing a pretty standard inner compartment inside. We look back into our own faces in the mirror that covers the elevator's back wall. Behind us is the illusion of the eternal forest. James claps his hands and breaks the tension. Okay, ladies, here we go. We going down. James, Maya murmurs, I don't know about this. This thing could go anywhere. He sighs. Oh, don't go back on me now, girl. It's okay, we'll all be together. We'll just go down, check it out, take some pictures. Maybe a video for YouTube. Maya says nothing and James turns to me. Indy, come on, set her straight. I'm down, James, obviously, but we should for sure all stick together. I'm not leaving Maya behind if she wants to stay. James rolls his eyes. He presses the button again to prevent the elevator doors from closing. Waiting for us to make a move and seeing that we aren't, he takes it upon himself to stride right into the elevator compartment, and then turns to face us, folding his arms. Let's go already, he says, beckoning us in. I take a step towards him and my foot crunches in the leaves. James, just wait for a second. But he only grins. The door slides shut and he vanishes from sight. I jump forward and repeatedly press the elevator button to try and reopen the doors, but I'm too late. For God's sake, man, I mutter angrily, looking up to the LED display above the doors. They flicker and change from 0 to -1, slowly through to -2, where the display then blinks and cuts out. Indy, what do we do? Maya asks me as I reach into my pocket for my phone. Straight away, I try to call James' number, but he declines it. That boy. I fume quietly in the glow of the elevator, thinking, alright, while he obviously wants us to slow him down, let's just wait for him to come back up. He'll get bored without the attention. Sure, Maya says. Yeah, that's a good idea. So that's what we do. Not very exciting, but we just wait in the darkness, checking our phones, trying to send text messages. But 5 minutes pass, and then 10, and then 20, and then 30. Maya stirs. This isn't working, is it? He's not going to come back up. Hell, what if he's in trouble? I bite my lip. She's giving voice to my own thoughts. We're going to have to go down, aren't we? Yeah, she replies. Dang it. I pocket my phone and brush my hair back from my face. Alright, let's get it over with. And be prepared for him to do something stupid like jump out at us. I reach forward and I press my finger against the button. Now that I actually have time to think, I realize that James was right. It does feel kind of warm. The whirring beneath the ground resumes, and I feel a subtle buzzing, a murmuring through my body as I wait for the doors to open. The LED at the top of the elevator reappears. It changes through the numbers until it reaches 0. And with that same soft ding, the elevator door slides steadily open. And we once again look back into our own faces in the mirror's reflection, with the endless shadows of the forest leading away behind. Well, here we go then, I mutter in a voice that fails to project. I step forward first and Maya follows, and together we head inside the compartment. Which floor did James go down to? There's a pause. I don't know, it wasn't the first one. Was it -2 or lower? Damn it, I don't remember either. Well, try -2 first then. My heart has begun to pound, but I do my best to ignore its beating as I reach to the buttons on the wall to my left. I tap the -2 and the doors draw slowly shut with a soft hiss. For a moment, there is nothing. I can feel Maya's nervous energy right beside me, and then we both jump as the elevator jolts and begins its descent. The whirring sound coming from all around us now. Down we go. Down to -1. It's clear that the elevator has significantly picked up speed, but we're not dropping through levels as quickly as I had thought we would. How deep down are we going exactly? I look around me. There's not much going on in this compartment. There's the mirror, the shiny chrome walls and doors, the buttons, and a little compartment beside them. I peer closer to read the small text written on the grid's label. Do not open or engage prior to adequate shutdown. Risk of fire. Max weight 2,000 pounds. The elevator drops down to -2. It whirs and grinds as it draws to a halt, and I hold my breath as I wait for the doors to open up. There's the hiss, and the world beyond the doors reveals itself. It takes my eyes a moment to adjust. The hall before us is vast and long, wide with high-up, heavy pipeline ceilings, and clinical if rather dank-stained walls that lead away through shadow and beneath the dim glow of gently humming fluorescent lights. They look old and some are cracked and flickering. Some of the beams don't seem to work at all. Whoa, Maya murmurs. This is spooky as hell. James, I hiss, leaning out from the elevator doors and into the darkness. Are you out there? But there is no reply. I sigh and bring my hands up to my chin, and then I set out into the hall looking back at Maya. Come on, let's go and find him. She says nothing but pales as she steps out from the elevator to join me. Once she's done this, the doors were quietly closed. I shiver, but I set off into the hall. tensed and waiting for James to jump out at us at any moment. I hope that he will, to tell the truth. Then we can laugh and put this behind us and just get the hell out. But James does not appear. What the hell is this place, Indy? Maya asked me. Some kind of bunker, you think? I don't know. I reply as I cast my eye down long, off-shooting corridors. Corridors leading away into the shadows, and marked with long strips of crisscrossing tape. Condemned, they read. Do not enter. There are plenty of old wooden boxes stacked up against the walls, and areas of the surrounding space look to have been sealed away with metal shutters, seemingly locked up tight. James! I call out again a little bit louder, trying to keep the fear from shaking my voice. His name echoes down and away into the gloom. And as I'm looking around, I catch sight of something moving. Something up high against the ceiling. I recoil in sudden horror, my breath caught in my throat for a second as I stagger away from the movement, and Maya jumps in turn at my sudden motion. Something seems to be shivering up by the ceiling, roughly the size of, I don't know, a cat maybe, tucked up against the wall by a leaky pipe. The hell is that? I mutter, heart beating as Maya steps up to my side. I tap on the flashlight to my phone and raise it up to get a better look, and the light reveals a quietly pulsating, deadly-looking mass. A fungus, I guess, or a cluster of fungus. Gray-green with specks of black. I watch it as it trembles for a second or two longer, and then it falls back into hesitant, waiting stillness. I squint and lean a little closer. Not too close, mind you. I dread to think of the spores such a monstrosity might produce. I realize further that there are tiny twitching little worms that seem to be burrowing their way between the various bulbs and bulges of the cluster. Although I'm not sure if they're worms at all, or just minute, quietly squirming little tendrils. I don't consider myself very squeamish, but I have to suppress a sudden gag and take a step back. Indy, Maya murmurs, and I turn to her. She's stepped a few feet away and is facing the opposite direction. Do you see that thing? I ask her. I've never seen anything like it. There's probably more around here too. But Maya isn't even looking this way anymore. She stood beside what looks like an old power box, staring down at the ground beneath the flickering light. What? I ask her, walking over. But she puts out an arm to stop me from going too far. And I'm glad she did. Looking down at the ground past her feet, it makes my stomach drop. Behind the power box, the floor just gives away. It isn't immediately obvious due to the overlapping, flickering pattern of shadows, but the floor cracks away into an enormous hole. An entire missing section of flooring, and rusted old iron girders and broken grids are visible now. Down it goes, down past more dripping pipes and dead hanging cables. Down into the void. I become aware of a subtle rumbling coming up from this gap in the floor, coming up from beneath. From the far down darkness, I catch a glimpse of another cluster of fungus too, attached in an arc around one of the pipes. I shiver and lift my head to face back down the corridor. James! I call out one quickly last time, before I can psych myself out. James, we're heading back up. This isn't good. We'll see you back on the surface. But as ever, there is no response.
Creepy stuff in Mega Man, yes.
I grab Maya's hand and turn back the way we came. Back to the elevator doors, and she does invite me. The doors, though, they're so far away, and I can barely even still see them through the shadows. Did we really come so far? I could have sworn that we barely walked more than a few dozen feet down the hall. But no, they're a long way away. I increased my pace, and Maya does likewise. I cast a quick look behind me at the fungus up and against the ceiling, and to my dismay it looks like it has resumed its shivering in the shade. I start moving faster still, long strides, and my breathing quickens. The faint blue-green lights of the elevator doors become visible, and
I
we
did not
break
time
into
that
a
well.
run. Side by side, we tear down the hall, one of my shoes landing squarely on a piece of strewn, ooze-marked paper, and it's sent up into the air as I race towards the doors. I can't even tell you why I'm running in truth. I just feel it in my gut that something is terribly wrong and that we need to get out. The doors approach, closer and closer, and we stumble to a chaotic halt as my finger is slammed up against the button. Again and then again. We hear the thing whirring into motion.
Sean, can you hear the creepypasta
I
well?
cast a fearful look back over my shoulder and down into the hungry darkness of the hallway. Come on, come on, I mutter, until at last the doors grind steadily open and we jump right inside. Back to the surface, my ass. Yeah, let's go back to the top and just think about what to do, I reply, thumbing the button for 0. And the doors draw dutifully closed. For a moment there is silence, and then it begins its ascent. Up, through the underground layers. I watch, blood pumping as the LED display finally changes from -2 to -1. But here, the elevator quickly decelerates. What's happening? Maya hisses, and then, with a hiss of its own, the elevator comes to a stop and the doors draw open, unbidden at level -1. As the doors part, we find ourselves staring back at ourselves. There is only a wall between the elevator doors here, a giant glass mirror. And there we are, staring into our own faces. The mirror before us reflects the mirror behind us and creates the illusion of a dark and never-ending tunnel, leading away in both directions. A dark tunnel with Maya and I at the center. And we stand in terrified silence, and the lights cut out. There is only the sound of our ragged breathing for a long, long moment, and when the lights flicker back into life, there is somebody else in the mirror, somebody standing just behind us. A young woman staring back at us from the glass with lidless eyes, her skin deathly white, translucent even, and is peeled away completely from around her wide and bloodshot eyes. Please, she whispers, and Maya screams in alarm. She screams and panics and attacks the buttons on the side of the elevator in a frenzy, but I cannot move. I never would have thought that I would react like this, but here I am, stock still and frozen in place, unable to tear my gaze from the gaze of the woman in the mirror. She disappears from view as the elevator doors hiss closed, and motion resumes as we find ourselves once again going down. Down, 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 back down to the depths of the complex below.
We're going down,
The
down.
elevator descends down through the complex. The motion is quick, but the LED's transition from -1 to -2 is slow. I finally gather enough inner strength to move and turn to look at the spot behind me, where the spectral woman had appeared. But she isn't there now. There's only Maya and myself. I become aware that Maya is still screaming. I shoo my eyes back up to the LED. We're still descending. -2 flickers away and is gradually replaced by a -3. The elevator decelerates and then finally it stops entirely. There's a soft ding and a hiss, and the doors part. Jesus, comes a voice from the gloom, and Maya is startled out of her panic. She looks like she's going to pass out. The voice is James. James, I manage breathlessly, stepping out from the elevator on shaking legs towards him. Equal parts relief and frustration. You idiot, what the hell are you playing at? Oh, hey, wait, he says suddenly, jumping past me and putting his hand on the elevator door, preventing it from closing. The doors jam and clank, and he breathes a sigh of his own relief. Sorry, guys, he says apologetically. I came down here to try and scare you, but the buttons don't work on this floor. So the doors closed shut behind me, and I couldn't get them to open again. He chuckles. I was freaking out for a while, I'm not gonna lie. You girls took your damn time. I smack him on the arm. Ow, he says. Hey, stupid asshole. Never do anything like that again. Alright, jeez. He looks over to Maya. Maya, you okay? Maya only stares ahead, shaking. She does, however, pull the boy into a hug, which surprises him. Okay, he says. Let's just get out of here, shall we? I don't think that we can, I reply. The elevator doors try to shut again, but James's hand keeps them in place. Don't think we can. No, I reply. James, there's something messed up going on down here. I don't know what exactly, but I think we might need to look for another way out. Maya and I tried getting back to the surface, and well, I explained the ghostly woman. The woman with the skin and flesh peeled away from her eyes. The woman who only appeared in the mirror on level -1, and how the elevator wouldn't take us up any higher. James laughs nervously. What the hell? He looks back to Maya and he sees the truth in her face. She was right there, Maya says quietly. Right there behind us. So she was what? You're telling me that you saw a ghost. I don't know what we saw. I think she was only in the mirror, a trick maybe. An illusion or something clever. Like a hologram, I guess. But she looked real enough. We both saw her. And the elevator didn't go back to the surface. I hold out my palm and I look down at my hand as James considers this. My fingers are still trembling. Maya is convinced the girl was a genuine ghost, a spirit of some kind. And she starts babbling to James as I turn and take in our new surroundings properly for the first time. Where floor -2 was a wide and abandoned hall, a warehouse of sorts. This level is far higher tech. The lights seem more reliable down here, though there aren't as many of them. They glow and hum softly in faint shades of teal and turquoise, and they cast the desks and
Oh, you gotta
panes
be
of
shitting me.
aesthetic wall-like glass all around us in
No,
an
that's
eerie,
bad.
watery
I did not
light.
save.
There are computers down here too. Desk chairs, some tipped onto their sides. Cabinets, and further down the corridor is what looks like some kind of water feature, though the water no longer runs. Many of the desks still boast subtle blinking lights in orange and yellow. Okay, James says after a minute of thought. Okay, if you're saying that we can't get back up via the elevator, then we'll just have to find another way out. Right? Right, I reply, and he gestures for me to hold the elevator doors. I do so as he walks over to a nearby desk, grabbing 2 of the chairs and dragging them over, wedging them into the elevator to prevent the doors from closing. Is that going to be enough? I ask, and after a moment of hesitation, he decides to drag over an entire desk too, grunting with the exertion. Just in case, he says as he catches his breath. But satisfied that the doors are now not going to shut on us, we set out as a trio into the shadows. So, I say, did you do any exploring down here while you were stuck? Yeah, James replies. I didn't find any stairs or anything, but there's a load of more corridors this way. It all seems interconnected, like there's no doors or anything, just walls and glass and
No,
cables and
phone,
shit.
stop
Do any
making
of the
sounds
computers
that are
work?
creepypasta
I
related.
couldn't get any of the screens to load. Oh, but hey, check this out. He takes a slight detour and pushes past some strewn around office chairs and points at one of the computers. Not the monitor, but the actual boxy computer itself. Check it. I look and then recoil. It's that same fungus again. There is a tipped over, presumably split coffee mug on the top of the computer, and it has now been bound to the machine with a series of throbbing, green and gray oozing masses and thin crawling tendrils. The grids and panel of the computer are bulged, warped and cracked where the fungus has clearly expanded from the inside. Black ooze leaks down the side from the fans and over the desk. I think it's black at least. It's hard to tell the color in this light. That's revolting, Maya murmurs. It's the same as the fungus upstairs. I say to both of them, "This stuff is dangerous. Look and see how it reacts to the sound, to our voices. It's moving." It certainly pulsing fast, throbbing more violently. Come on, we shouldn't be so close to it. "No, it's not gonna hurt us," James remarks. But after a moment of hesitation, he does as I say, and we continue on along our way. "It might, James," says Maya. "You know, spores and stuff." To this, James says nothing. We walk for quite a long time. 20 minutes or so, passing near identical rooms with occasional control panels. We see dead screens and quietly blinking computers. Glass containers, some intact, some cracked and smashed. Some of these containers contain samples of the fungus. We discuss what we've seen as we make our way through the darkness, primarily the ghost in the mirror. So, if she was real, if, I say, then what was she? What do we think? "She's a ghost," Maya says with certainty. "She was more than a projection. I could feel her. I could feel her presence in the elevator. She was cold and sick." "You guys swear that you're not just messing with me, right? Like for real?" James asks again, but he is met only with grim silence, and he does not ask for a third time. What the hell happened down here? I wonder aloud. This place is just so deserted. Like everybody tried to leave in a hurry. And what's the deal with this layout? "No doors," says Maya. "No signs. No damned emergency exit signs and no stairs." James grunts, kicking over a chair in frustration. "Hey, chill out." But I forget. James was down here far longer than we were. He's already
Damn, I
spent an
couldn't get
hour
it
or
up.
more
I
of his
couldn't get straight
night
fast
looking
enough.
for an exit before we even showed up. "Where's the way out?" He barks and then louder. "Hello, was anybody there?" "James," Maya hisses, pushing him. "Be quiet." "Why?" he responds. And Maya doesn't have to answer for him. She only shrugs and looks away. I get why she said it though. The loudness of his voice makes me cringe in a place as quiet and slumbering as this. But I can't put into words why that is exactly. "Hello?" James shouts again, throwing out his arms, but there is no response. His voice echoes away into the turquoise gloom, and he rubs a hand across his forehead. With a sigh, he slumps down into the nearest seat and stares off into space. "I'm sorry, guys," he says quietly. "This was a mistake. I shouldn't have come down here." "It's all right," Maya murmurs. "Come on," I say. "Let's just get this done. Let's try one of these corridors." But we've been walking in basically a straight line. If we go off course, how are we gonna find our way back? Asks Maya. "Look, let's just make something we'll recognize. Here, help me stack these chairs together." And we push a small group of chairs into a pile. A shape that we'll be able to see and find and try heading off down a new route. At first, there are only more endless open space halls full of desks, computers, and occasional glass boxes. But the boxes become more numerous as we head through, until past a section of standalone plexiglass frosted wall, we find ourselves surrounded by them. Many of the boxes are filled with water and lit from beneath, and the colors of these lights are washed against the nearby walls. James looks around and his face is cast in a watery blue and deep green. Maya shivers despite the fact that it's warmer in here than the complex as a whole, and her eyes reflect the dim purple glow from a nearby tank. The warmth, I think aloud. The lights, the elevator. There's something still powering all of this stuff. Some backup generators or something. I look up overhead to see a red bulb blinking clear and fast. It sends out brief, regular flashes across the pipes and metalwork above our heads. An LED with a basic stickman running through a door is also illuminated. That kind of looks like an exit sign. Is there a way out around here? We split up a bit. Not too much, don't worry, still within shouting distance. And we explore around these curious glass tanks. Most are empty of everything but water. But on some of the glass, it has become clouded and blocked by gunge and dark murk. I creep between two long tanks and peer through an open doorway, leading into a long hallway beyond. The ceiling is high in here and there are platforms attached to the wall. Vantage points for walking across and looking down to the hall floor below. The room is filled with watery tanks, and these ones are large. Far larger than the fish tank-sized boxes in the previous corridors. Guys, I call out, just above my regular speaking volume. Guys, come and check this out. I hear their footsteps approach and they join me in the doorway, and together we head into the hall looking all around. Most of the tanks are illuminated in either red or blue, though a couple towards the far end appear to glow softly in purple. Our footsteps echo around the walls as I look up into the nearest blue tank. It's that fungus, I mutter to the guys. You see, it's in the water. I struggle with a rise of revulsion as I see the fungus quiver in the liquid, attached to the corner of the tank at about head height and the size of a basketball. Its tendrils drift lazily in the water and a bubble escapes from its side. I watch with disgust as the bubble rises up to the surface and it disappears. There's some in this one too, says Maya, and I turn to look. She is washed in the tank's blue light, and beyond her in the water is another example of the fungus. This one is longer and larger, and it covers almost an entire wall with its growth. James is a little further ahead. He stands in the red glow of the tank before him and stares up into its water. James, you good? I ask, but he does not reply. He does not turn, and a chill ripples up and across my back. My mouth goes deathly dry, and I try again. James? No response. Cautiously, I walk over to him, though my movements have become sluggish and slow. I turn my head to look in the tank. In the center, softly bubbling, is a bloated mass that throbs and twitches. Long, thick tendrils connected to the walls of the tank, and in its very center is an eye. An active, watching, disturbingly human eye. The hell? James whispers, and in response, the eye suddenly jolts, rolling sharply up to stare right into James' face, and the pupil shrinks. My stomach drops, and in the exact same second a noise reverberates from the corner of the hall, a thudding and the patter of general movement. I swing my head around and catch a glimpse of a red and purple washed shadow slithering around in the darkness, and for a second my voice catches in my throat. I am only able to grab onto Maya's sleeve, but as soon as I've drawn in a breath I say it. Run. I don't need to shout. The message is clear. I start to drag Maya back through the complexes. James's legs return to life, and together we make our escape. The energy is suddenly frantic as we sprint and stagger back through the hall and into the preceding corridors. Oh, screw this. I'm out. James shouts as we pushed past desks and blinking lights.
I'm gonna turn the light off to make it
the
creepier.
tower of chairs that we created and sending it tumbling to the ladder. I can't do this anymore. I'm going up the elevator. But James, the girl. Oh, forget that. I would rather take some ghost than whatever the hell is down here. And he runs down the long corridor back to the elevator, and I sprint after him before I lose him behind the panels and walls. James, wait up. But he doesn't. He runs and runs until at last all three of us are stumbling and panting, exhausted at the doors, but still he doesn't stop. He tears away the chairs, and with a grunt he draws back the desk, freeing the door space and allowing the elevator to close. He steps inside, chest rising and falling and face flushed. His eyes dart over our shoulders. Well, let's go. Maya looks like she's about to cry. I can't leave you down here, so get in, come on. He urges, and reluctantly she does so, shaking. I grip my teeth and feel myself get dragged in. I turn to look through the doors and into the gloom as they steadily draw close with a soft hiss and a gentle ding. And my stomach lurches as the elevator begins to rise. Maya stands shaking in the corners, staring straight ahead. James swallows anxiously, still catching his breath. Maybe it won't happen this time. Maybe it'll be okay. The LED goes from -3 to -2. Up we go, ascending through the darkness. And my fear rises with it. I read the little line of text by the button compartment over and over to try and keep myself calm. Do
Oh,
not
fuck you. I
open or
have to answer
engage prior
riddles?
to adequate shutdown. Risk of fire, max weight 2,000 pounds. It'll be okay. I mutter out loud.
Oh.
It's gonna be alright. The LED rolls from -2 to -1, and it starts to slow. James looks down to the buttons to the left. Maya starts to panic. No, no, no. The elevator comes to a stop at -1. My blood chills and everything seems to suddenly drift in slow motion. The doors clang steadily open and we see ourselves in the mirror. The color drains from James's face and indeed from mine.
Wait, I didn't
There
see it.
stand behind us two
Oh,
apparitions.
I guessed correctly.
The young woman from before, and a man a little older. They both stare back at us in the glass. They shimmer as if not entirely there, and the skin is melted, peeled away from their eyes, giving them terrifying, lidless expressions.
I didn't read it, but
No
still
more,
got it right.
the man whispers. And quick as a flash, James slams the button for the elevator. Up, he shouts. Back to the surface. The doors close and we are plunged back into darkness. But the elevator does not go up. It refuses. So down we go. Down, down, down. Back down and into the depths. The elevator shudders through the darkness on its descent. Waves of narrow light washing over us as we drop down through the earth, until at last comes to a stop on level -4. The doors hiss and dutifully slide open, and we tumble out as a 3 and into the darkness. Holy hell, James mutters, putting a hand on his head, and then throwing it out into the dark. Jesus. Yeah, I reply quietly, as Maya tries to stifle sobs just behind us. She wipes a sleeve across her eyes, and then we don't say anything for a while. We just process and look around. And we appear to be in some sort of lobby, a transitional place, I guess. Not much feature to it. There's the water cooler and some chairs, and there's a vending machine in here
Oh,
too.
mother.
There's not much left in it though. Upon closer inspection, I realized that the door has been cracked off its hinges. It looks like it could swing wide open. A corridor leads away just ahead and around a corner. It's warmer down here, more humid. And so you guys weren't screwing around then about that ghost, James says eventually. No, I reply. Of course not. So we really are going to have to find another way out of here then. We have no choice. Come on, I say to him, to both of them. Are you ready? We should keep going. Right, he replies. He reaches over and squeezes Maya's hand, a gesture that she seems to appreciate. Let's keep going. We head through the little room and around the corner. I don't know what I was expecting to find down here on level -4, but it wasn't what I'm seeing now. The corridor opens up into a wide hallway. To the right is a collection of office spaces, empty meeting rooms, and whiteboards with glass walls. Not so many computers down here. The screens are fewer and built into walls well clear of the floor. The floor itself is tiled, all of it. Ahead and to the left of the office space is an enormous pool, and as with the level above, it's lit eerily in green. There are machines fixed into the pool's edges. I'm not sure what they are, though one looks like it could be a wave generator. I walk over to the water's edge, to the gentle lapping against the side. It's not entirely still. The pool goes pretty deep down. It's difficult to say due to its warped perception and grungy color of the water. But the pool walls round out into a cylinder and drop way down into the darkness. There are offshooting tunnels built into the pool's side, and I can see another such pool further into the complex and half hidden around a series of spiraling metal stairs. These stairs climb to a collection of interconnected viewing platforms up above our heads. This is the first part of the whole place that I've seen so far with actual doors. There are lots here in the walls, leading away to unknown rooms and through curious passages. What is this place, guys? James asks, shaking his head as a vent hisses somewhere away in the shadow. What the hell is all this stuff? We shouldn't be down here, Maya says. That's all I know for sure. Some old research laboratory. But it's so massive, you would have thought we would have heard of it. Or somebody would have known about it or something. I pause for thought. Abandoned, James says. Something happened here and they all got the heck out. Pretty damn quick too. They didn't even have time to shut off the lights or finish their coffees. So they got attacked by the ghosts, maybe. Attacked by ghosts, I repeat, adjusting my sweater in the humidity and then deciding to take it off and wrap it around my waist. No, that doesn't sound right. They don't attack us anyway, Maya says. They're only in the elevator, nowhere else. And James rubs his hands over his face. Let's just keep going. We need out. So keep going we do. We walk around the edge of the pool as the green light shimmers on its surface. Our eyes readjust to the gloom. Oh my God, I mutter, looking up into the corners of the room. Looking at the edges, at the pipes, at what I took originally for only shadows. Guys, this place is filled with that fungus. Look, it's everywhere. And it really seems to be. Thick bulbous clusters of dark fungus spread and stretched out in the dampest, most humid crevices of the complex. It's probably just my imagination, but the air down here seems to become a great deal thicker. Cover your mouths, I say to them, just in case. Spores, you know. Maya has a mask in her back pocket and she puts it on. James and I have to make do with drawing the front of our shirts up over our noses and mouths. And so we walk, us three wanderers, through the wet and the gloom of this underground nightmare. A trio in the watery darkness. We should climb up to the platforms up there, I say after a while, gesturing to the stairs. It might give us a better view of where to go. Sure, James replies. And we climb on up, our footsteps echoing with metallic clanks as we ascend. It doesn't go up very high, maybe 10 or so feet off the ground, but it does give us a better vantage point. We cross from one platform to another via a narrow metal bridge built between them. But after a moment or two, Maya comes to a sudden stop and James bumps right into her. Maya, geez. I turn to look back at them and I see Maya staring intently down into the water of this pool directly below us. Guys, look. We do so and I see immediately what she must have spotted. We aren't alone down here. There's something in the water. My heart pounds as I peer down, trying to make sense of what it is that I'm seeing. The shape in the water is human. At least it looks human. The thing is slithering through the water, and while its shape might be humanoid, Its movements and motions are very much not. They're more snake-like or fish-like. And the more that I watch, the more I notice the things that are wrong. Very, very wrong indeed. The man, as it is a man, slithers and swims like a great fish. His legs, I see, have been, I don't know how to describe it, melted together almost. His limbs and joints are stuck and bound, wrapped, wrapped by what appears to be a combination of melted flesh and that terrible dark fungus. Jesus. A long, low fin the color of the fungus is pushed up and out from his spine. I cannot see his face as he swims with his head down, but there are gill-like appendages writhing and slowly pulsating at the sides of his neck. A neck stuck to his torso with dark shivering strands. The abomination in the water approaches a corner of the pool and slithers around in a quick, sickening motion to change its direction. How does he know where to go? James whispers. He can't see where he's going. But he can, I realize. He can. From the top of his head, out from his scalp and peering through his hair are two faintly glowing eyes. Pale yellow in the darkness. Eyes where God knows there really, really shouldn't be. That thing in the water might once have been a human man, but it isn't anymore. His biology, the very structure of his being, has been warped into a monster beyond recognition. A creature is slithering about in the depths. We watch in quiet terror as the thing slithers through the water, dropping down into the darkness until it is quickly lost from sight. The surface of the pool ripples softly and the filters whir dutifully on. We wait for a while in strange silence, waiting to see if the creature will resurface. Once we are as sure as we can be that it hasn't reemerged anywhere, we carry on, now painfully conscious of the sounds of our shoes against the thin metal of the stairs and the narrow platforms. What the hell was that? James mutters under his breath. That was a dude, right? What the hell happened to him? What's going on down here? You see that stuff that he was all gunked up with, I reply. It was that fungus, James, I'm sure of it. We need to get out. We really need to get the hell out of here already. How did it do that to him? Maya murmurs. How could it? I don't know, none of us do. But that grotesque image of the fungus bulging from within the computer on floor -2 returns to the forefront of my mind, and I shiver in revulsion. The platform comes to an end. Well, not quite an end as such, but they just keep going around and around the upper levels of these interlinked subterranean pool halls. We'll need to go down now if we want to make any progress. So down we go, moving carefully from step to step, and I can feel the group cringe as a whole when James accidentally slams his foot down hard onto the metal. Reverberations are sent out through the railings. It's fine, I find myself muttering. It's all fine, just keep moving. We reach the base of the stairs. The water from the pool here is leaked across the tiles and our shoes make little splashes as we cross. I look back over my shoulder again and again, watching the surface of the water, looking for signs that the creature within is going to ride up from the depths. But it does not. Not yet, at the least. We pass through an arc, illuminated in flickering blue, through another and another. One last pool, only a few meters wide in circumference, bubbles softly to our left. It's ringed with a railing. The machine attached to the water still works, but I have no idea what its purpose could possibly have been. We reach a door with a translucent window pane and push it open, revealing a lobby of sorts just behind it. There's a battered old humidity-damaged couch, and a plant that has exploded beyond the confines of its pot. The thing has climbed up the side of the wall and has grown into the ceiling tiles and the lighting. Maya hurriedly closes the door behind us and releases what I presume to be a long-held breath. So, it's the fungus, Maya says, stumbling over her words a little. You were... you were right, Indy. You guys saw it right. The fungus bulging through that guy's skin. She pales as she says this. There must be a way out around here, James says as he looks around, distracting himself from what he saw perhaps. A backroom set of stairs or a freight elevator or hell, just something. Something other than that elevator in the middle of the forest. There's an adjacent room here connected to the lobby. Lots of rooms actually, all leading into and through each other. The one right beside us has a thick glass screen that looks out into the damp and dingy pool, and the walls are covered in dead screens and random sketches. There's a large framed group photograph in here too, though humidity has curled and wrinkled its edges. The sketches are of the fungus. I hear rustling and I look over to see Maya flicking through a load that had been taped together. Drawings, diagrams, sketches of vivisections and fungal roots. There are other drawings too. Drawings and photographs tacked or taped alongside. Disturbing pictures of human faces. Human faces infected and diseased, with rotting skin around the eyes, peeling back and away from the skulls. There are pages upon pages of notes titled Treatment Hypothesis and Experiment Log, and other such titlings. My own eyes jump from picture to picture. There are sketches of animals here. Most are of fish, but there are lizards as well, bats and rats. And then there's the framed photograph, the large one hung in the center of the wall. It depicts around 36 people in lab coats and other similar gear, stood on a podium in a large well-lit hallway. The frame hangs beneath the plaque marked, "The Final Line of Defense," and in one of the middle rows, I see a familiar face. And amongst all the others, it's her. It's the face of the ghostly young woman that I saw in the mirror. She looks normal here.
Oh,
She's
crap.
smiling. She doesn't look scary. She looks nice even. There's nothing wrong with her face or with her eyes. Maya,
Oh,
I
crap.
murmur, beckoning over my friend. That's her, isn't it? That's the woman from the elevator mirror. Maya joins alongside and looks closely. Yeah, she says. Yeah, that's her. And hey, James chimes in, pointing to the face of a man a row behind. That's the guy, right? The ghost man that we all saw together. It's him, isn't it? And sure enough, I think that James is right. That really looks like it could be him. A healthier, happier him. So what does it mean? I asked them. Should we even try to find out? Will it help us get to the surface? James puts his hand on his head. For God's sake, so they want us down here, is that it? The ghosts of these people. They want to keep us down here to die, to join them. What the hell happened to them? The Final Line of Defense. I read out loud from the plaque, mulling the words over in my head. Something thumps and reverberates through the ceiling. The light flickers. I shoot a glance through the glass back towards the dark pool hall. I can see it again, the fish creature. A slithering shadow near the surface of the water. Those two faintly glowing eyes, pale in the gloom. Ripples shimmer in and out across the pool as the monster swims. Without another word, James sets off through the rooms. Maya and I follow with one last look back. On we go past whiteboards kept in
Okay,
scrawlings.
I can get him next round.
Doodles of creatures. There are labels and notes and warnings. Reacts to sound. Begins with the eyes. Copies and pastes these qualities, modifying and adapting to suit the structure of its former host. Thorough remodeling, if left unchecked. They have sealed us away. We cannot get out. My heart hammers. With every subsequent room, the level of light seems to drop. The occasional green glow from a blinking, long-broken appliance is all that illuminates our way as we try to head further and further away from the pool hall. It doesn't feel like we're heading further away, though. The humidity and the warmth and the moisture in the air, it seems only to be increasing. Indy, Maya says from beside me, I don't like this. I don't think that this is the way. James, I call ahead. James, this isn't helping. James has his face pressed against a window of dark glass. It's just the same, he mutters. More pools, and these ones are larger. I can't take much more of this. A layer of sweat glistens green in the light across his forehead, and he wipes it away. There's another thud from the ceiling, and then the sound of a gentle scraping and a scratching in the darkness. It's okay, I say out loud, as the fear within the group rises. We're okay. We've been conserving the batteries on our phones, but James taps his on now. The light hits the floor and illuminates a series of sketches. Like the others, once tacked to the wall but have now fallen and curled unceremoniously. Some are of people, some are of fish. And one picture depicts another creature, an annotated spider. And as the scraping sounds are matched by a subtle wet hiss, James lifts his flashlight up to the ceiling. The light lands on a warped monstrosity, creeping its way towards us in the darkness. Terror strikes. The creature is the mutated combination of two human corpses, glued and merged and bound together by that vicious and terrible fungus. Cracked and twisted bodies into the shape of one enormous spider. The spider's 8 legs are the warped arms and legs of the two people, a man and a woman. And the woman I don't fail to realize is the young woman from the elevator. It's her from the picture, the first ghost. The spider has 2 fangs and each one distends from the mouth of one of the corpses. Saliva drips to the floor and pale yellow eyes glow all across the heads and necks of its hosts' bodies. Chaos takes hold and within a scream, I watch as Maya hauls the top drawer from the nearest metal filing cabinet. The motion disturbs the spider and with a sickening and skin-crawling speed, it scuttles across the ceiling to the opposite side of the room, being sure to keep us in its line of sight. Maya flings the drawer with all her strength at the glass and it strikes with a thud and causes an impact crack right in the center. There are 2 more drawers. James grabs the middle one and sends its papers spilling out over the floor. As the spider dares to creep down the wall towards us, James hurls the drawer right at its head. It hits with a wet squelch and with a hiss the spider retreats. The final drawer I grab myself, using it like a club in the spot that Maya damaged the glass until it smashes through entirely. We stumble through the gap. James cuts himself a little on his leg as he does so, and we scramble back out into the main pool hall. A different section to the one that we were in before. Over there, James shouts, and we see a wide doorway in the side of one of the walls, tucked away into a corner. We head towards it and I shoot a look back over my shoulder. One of the spider's legs emerges cautiously from behind the smashed glass. I catch a glimpse of cold, dead human fingers bound together with fungus, as they grip carefully to the edge of the shattered glass. I turn away, back to look the way that I'm going. James, why this way? I call ahead. This doorway is so much wider than the others.
That's what she
They must
said.
have needed a way to get all this stuff down here. He replies, though I can't tell if he's talking to me or to himself, as he takes us down a gloomy, fungus-lined corridor, ignoring the smaller doors and tight corners, opting instead for the wide and open doorless arches. James, surely, he mutters, red in the face from the exhaustion and the humidity. He leads us into the widest corridor so far. No tiles back here, just cold and emotionless concrete. There are a number of wooden boxes around, some small and some much larger. Please, he murmurs. Please, please. And still we run down the length of this corridor and into the darkness, following the gentle glow of a tiny blinking green light. Aha, he shouts, the glee in his voice bursting through the fear. Yes, I was right. He catches his breath as he skids to a halt. I always get there in the end. We have come to a stumbling stop beside the thing that we've been looking for, or one of the things at least. Hope flares up inside me. It's an elevator, a second elevator. The doors to this one are much larger and wider than the previous, and James hastily presses the button as we look it over. A whirring and a rumbling sounds up from beneath us. There is no LED above the elevator here to indicate what floor it's on, so we just have to wait anxiously until that dutiful hiss, and the doors grind their way open. The space in here is much larger than the one in our elevator, and there's no mirror along the walls either. And we rush in and examine the buttons. Wait, I say. This one doesn't go up, it only goes down. And sure enough, it looks like we have two options. A button for -4, the floor that we're currently on, and a button for -X. I look at the others. X it is then, I guess. I say quietly, and they nod grimly in response, elation already fast and dissipating. I press the button and the door slides slowly shut. One more level to go. Down, down, down. But this is good, right? This is progress. We have confirmed the existence of other elevators. There will be a way out. There has to be. Our stomachs drop as the elevator accelerates down. We are silent as it descends. And when at last it opens, we are met with another long corridor. Darkened, as with the level above, humid. Black mold creeps across the walls. The fungus is rife. I lift my shirt back over my nose and mouth as we head out into the misery of the complex. Directly opposite us is a similarly sized door to the elevator, massive and shuttered off with metal. James checks all over this, looking for buttons or ways to get it open, clues or keypads, but he finds nothing. Maya and I walk the length of the corridor. It narrows out pretty quickly. In one direction, the passage quickly becomes lost to a jungle of fungus. It makes my skin crawl just looking down it. The other way is far clearer, so our path really is a no-brainer. Once James has, frustrated, given up for now his assault on the metal barrier, we walk down this new corridor. It is lined with pipes and various valves and is barely wide enough for two of us to walk side by side. It snakes this way and that, sometimes stretching forward in a completely straight line. But there are no doors, no offshooting corridors or alternate routes. And at long last, we are led right back to where we started. There is a moment of painful tension, and then James swears in frustration and kicks the wall. Maya slumps down against it. After all this way, we've just reached the elevator again. The first one. Our elevator. After all that, we've just been led right back to the very same elevator. Its level at -X doors, waiting for us, taunting us. Maya starts quietly sobbing. Dazed and defeated, I turn to the right. There's a doorway here and it leads into a gloomy and red-lit hallway, and so I head on through. Why the hell not? What will I find? There's no way out. James shouts in despair. There's no way out. Help us. Anyone. How do we get out? My feet clank on metal mesh platform, kind of like the platforms on the level above, though maybe a little bit thicker. I quickly reach a rail and I put my hands on the bar. looking out over the edge. Ahead and below is the void. Steam churns quietly all around us. Vents blast and puff out bursts of the stuff, and already I can feel myself sweating worse than I did on the previous floor. To my left, the rail and the metal platform extends away into the darkness and the steam. To my right, it widens out a little. Styrofoam has been piled high in here. Cardboard, too, now rotted. A dumping ground for waste and junk. And amongst them, and steadily grinding and humming, are a series of generators. One has been dislodged from its location, and it leans at an awkward angle. The rest remain fixed in place. These must be what continue to power the facility. There are 9 of them down here by my count. As I walk past them one by one, kicking aside some styrofoam as I do. 2 of them appear to be dead, but the remaining 7, including the one tipped at an awkward angle, all continue to blink and judder. Ancient but powerful things, keeping it all running, I guess. Still doing their jobs after their masters have long since departed. I take a look down over the rail again, down into the great yawning chasm of nothingness below. If I squint, I feel like I can almost make out further platforms, dark and barely visible and way below, covered in shifting, crawling,
Awesome.
shadowed shapes.
I want to face him.
Unease takes hold and I
Let's go,
retreat from the
baby.
railing, suddenly nauseous.
You're like, he's on like
Looking
super
back
hard
to the
mode right
doorway,
now.
I can see that I've been joined by James and Maya, both illuminated red in the faint blinking lights of the generators. They aren't looking down though, they're looking up. I do likewise. Above our heads and attached to the metal grids of the ceiling is an enormous, throbbing fungal mass. It is colossal, the largest of them all by far. Bulging tentacle-like vines connect the mass to the metal overhead and spread out wide like an intricate nervous system. Slime oozes down its sides. The mass is covered with eyes. They stare in different directions, but stare they do. Some at James, some at Maya, and some at me. Unblinking, watching in the darkness. I don't feel afraid though now. Perhaps I have exhausted my fear reserves. I think about the ghosts, about the young woman, the picture that I saw of her smiling with her colleagues, her rotted corpse strung up and defiled into that fungal spider. I think of the ghost of the man too. I wonder now if perhaps that was him in the water, the slithering fish. Please, they had said. Please. And I decide, like a strike of lightning on a course of action. I turn from the monster's fungus, this centerpiece of desolation, the mother mass. I run back across the platforms through the steam and return to the elevator, tearing off a piece of pre-damaged piping from the wall as I do so. Indy, what are you doing? James asks me, but I move past him into the corridor and press the button for the elevator. My heart beats fast, but I feel better now than I have at any other point on this terrible nightmarish night. The elevator whirs. Its doors stand silent and still. And then with a soft ding, they open on up. I look for the panel by the buttons, the one that says, "Do not open or engage prior to adequate shutdown. Risk of fire. Max weight 2,000 pounds." And I smash it as hard as I can with the pipe. With the first hit, the panel dents and little sparks fly from the cracks. Indy, Maya asks after me, but she doesn't try to stop me. I smack the pipe against the panel again and it cracks and dents further. More sparks fly. Maya grabs some of the trash. I shout over my shoulder, "The styrofoam." She does so at once. She knows what I'm trying to do, and I'm not sure if James has caught on yet. I hit it over and over. I pull at the exposed wires and smack it as hard as I can. I press the buttons on the elevator and the doors try to repeatedly judder closed, but I don't let them. I keep forcing them back open even as I strike. Maya returns and I jam a load of the dryer cardboard and the styrofoam into the open paneling. Burn, I shout loud, with perhaps just a hint of madness in the edge of my voice. And lo and behold, it does. Flames flicker out from the panel and I strike it again. The flames die down and then burst out again, redoubled in size. What the hell are you doing? James shouts with his hands in his head. We're going to kill it, James, I tell him. The fungus. We're going to burn it out. This ends. He stares at me as smoke starts to fill the compartment. Dislodge the generator, I tell him as I encourage the fire to grow, feeding it with trash as it burns brighter and brighter. The one at the end, try to get it disconnected from the walls. James pauses. He looks like he's going to question this, but then he just nods and takes off. Maya, keep it going. Burn it bigger and brighter, more and more. I tell her and she does as I say. I run back to the metal platform, level -X, and with anger in my blood, I clamber up onto the lowest of the rails that mark the platform's edge, and I swing the pipe at the fungus again and again, attacking what I had perceived to be its weak point, where it looks the softest. Sludge bursts from the mass's sides and the eyes all swivel to stare right at me, staring into my soul as it vibrates furiously in response. Shadows move in the dark and the fire and the flames burn larger. I move forwards and backwards across the platform, grabbing up chunks of burning material and wedging them forcefully into the fungus's sides, right into the heart of the mother mass,
Kind of a cheap
into the
victory,
weak
but
spot that I tore out with the pipe.
I'll take it.
The fungus twitches and pulsates violently with every burning strike. The first few flames are extinguished quickly, and the mass is moisture and dew. But Maya joins in with my efforts, and as the edges of the fungus begin to dry and crack in the heat, the flames start to take hold. Smoke billows out from the elevator and up towards the ceiling. I glance up. There's an enormous hole in the metal roofing not far away, and this is where the smoke seems to congregate and climb on up and disappearing out of sight. I wonder idly if it might connect to that hole in the floor that Maya had found on level -1, all those long, long hours ago. The fungus thrums and throbs with rage. Its multitudes of horrendous eyes crack and melt in the searing heat as the fire begins to overtake it, and still Maya and I fan the flames. Burning trash is hurled right at it, stuffed into its sides. I scorch my hands a few times, but it doesn't faze me. The pupils of the mass's eyes all narrow as one, staring out with rage at its assailants. But it is undefended here, down here in the dark. And at last, with an unceremonious burst of gray news, the burning fungus disconnects from the ceiling. It hangs and swings by 3 thick, sticky threads, those tiny little worm-like tendrils flailing madly. And then 2 of those threads snap through and the fungus slams against the railing. The final eye stares up at me as it's engulfed in flames, and the final thread snaps too. Down goes the fungus, a burning fireball in the darkness. It illuminates in orange various pipes and platforms as it drops. We catch glimpses of terrible creatures lurking in the shadows, scampering away fearful of the light. And at last it crashes into a platform far below us, still sizzling and still smoking. But it isn't enough. We help James in the final stages of dislodging the generator, and with a great combined effort, we tip the machine, this vital organ of the facility, down over the railings after it. It too falls fast into the abyss, though its light is nowhere near as bright. Not until it strikes the smoldering fungus and the metal upon which it was cast. The generator bursts into an intense explosion that sends a ripple of heat all the way back up towards us, one that causes us to step back and shield our eyes. And then for a while there's quiet. Just the sound of us three idiot teenagers catching our breath. The distant sizzling of the remains and ruins down below, and the flickering flames in the exterior behind us. I cough through the smoke and start to kick and haul away the pieces of burning trash by the elevator's edges. I use the pipe to reach in and separate the materials, and then sitting down on the metal mesh and close to the ground, we wait for the fires to burn themselves out. I would say it takes about 15 minutes. But at last, the final flame dies out, leaving behind it a blackened and scorched and smoky elevator room, lined with ash and with wires sparking out from its panel. Do you think it'll still work? I ask Maya and James after a moment. Yeah, says James. I'm sure it will. A bit of fire damage, it ain't nothing. And even if it doesn't, Maya says, we'll find another way. We'll for sure find another way out. We found another elevator, we can do the same again. She squeezes my hand. Okay, I reply with an exhausted smile. Shall we give it a try then? Yeah, James replies. Let's do this. And so we clamber to our feet and into the elevator. The smoke is dispersed now, but it still reeks of ash and rot and burnt plastic. With another cough, I glance to the others and then carefully press the button to floor 0. There is silence for a second or two, an unsettling grinding noise, as if the elevator is struggling with a request. But then, as its purpose, it whirs and rumbles and the doors draw closed with a soft and familiar ding. And up it goes. Up, ascending through the darkness. The LED flickers from -X to -4. I shift from foot to foot, waiting and hoping. Up from -4 to -3. Higher still from -3 to -2. What's going to happen, I think to myself. Will it take us back to the surface? Ascending up and up. And as it happens, it does not. Not yet, at least. The LED flickers over from -2 to -1, and here the elevator decelerates. James grips one of my hands and my other takes Maya's. The elevator slows to a stop, and as before, it slowly whirs open. The lights blink and drop, and we are plunged temporarily into darkness. And when they return, we see ourselves in the reflection. The mirror wall that the open doors of the elevator reveal to us. It reflects the mirror behind us and creates the illusion of a tunnel leading away into infinity. And in this tunnel are almost 36 people. Directly behind us are the young woman and the man, and behind them are others, dressed in lab coats and other such gear. It's the group from the framed photograph that we found on level -4, the final line of defense. They shimmer and they smile. Their eyes have not rotted around the sockets. They are as they were, at their best. My heart beats fast, but I am not afraid. Thank you, moused the ghostly young woman, and I smile at her. The elevator doors to floor -1 were quietly closed of their own accord, and at last it whirs on, ascending. Back up we go to level 0, back to the forest. And when the doors finally open, we are rushed with a cool and glorious breath of fresh forest air. It spills into the open compartment, and we are illuminated in the light of the moon and stars. And our ghostly cohort streams steadily out through the doors. In human forms at first, but fading quickly into nothing more than silvery starlight, they disperse into the air around us, and then they vanish peacefully away. I don't know quite what to say. I don't think any of us do. So we simply head on out and back through the forest. The leaves crunch beneath our feet, and I hear the sound of a soft ding behind us as the elevator doors were closed. Rain in the quarry. Rain. Big country alley. Smiling dot. Jerry Rainey. Nelson Asada. Die screaming. Meat Dasher. A couple of months ago, my best friend Bryce moved away to a town that I had never heard of before. He had just landed his dream job. I was gutting to say the last, but worse than that. He practically ghosted me after he left. I sent a few texts here and there, even rang him a few times, but I heard nothing in return. Having been close friends since we were kids, the experience was jarring and definitely shook my trust in friendship as a concept. Thankfully, he recently sent me a text message, apologizing for the radio silence and claiming that moving and starting a new position had taken over his headspace. He told me that I should visit him in his new haunt, and I enthusiastically accepted. We carved out a week that worked for the both of us, and the plan was set. Armed with a backlog of Spotify playlists to keep me company, I plugged the address that he provided into my GPS and I went on my way. It ended up being a lengthy and confusing drive through roads unfamiliar. But finally I arrived in his neighborhood. I took in the scenery. This new neck of the woods was bizarre to say the least. On the same street, housing tacky-looking detached homes stood gothic-looking manors, straight out of a Victorian novel. Way too many convenience stores here for such a small community. And did I mention the town center? Well, wouldn't you have it, it was a collection of skyscrapers piercing through the clouds that looked sleeker than anything that I had ever seen before in my city girl life. The town planner clearly had a fragmented personality. I pulled into the driveway of Bryce's fancy cottage. Really, Bryce, a cottage. Ran up the steps and I rapped at the door. He peeked out through his living room curtains, and ever the goofball that I knew and loved shot me a puzzled look for minutes before he finally opened the door. I flung into him and gave my brother Bear a big hug. The dude seemed tense. "Friend," I exclaimed. "Rose, you're here," he replied. "Of course, dude. You made us plan the trip down to the hour. You have gotten mad organized since we last spoke." I settled into the coziest couch that I could find in his living room, and I let the snug air of his new place flood my senses. It was blissful. I had to admire what he had done to the place. It felt like the culmination of years of settling in, not some place that he had just signed a lease for. "Well," I started, "clearly you've struck it big with the new gig. All that's left for you now is finding a girlfriend so that you can do all that build a family nonsense that everybody's always yapping about." "Yeah, hey, let me get you some coffee, all right?" He walked into the kitchen. More curt than I remembered him ever being. I wondered if the girlfriend comment threw him off. It was only a joke, friend. He returned moments later, coffees in hand. He handed me one of the mugs and then sat opposite of me on another sofa. "So, I gotta say, this area, town, little city, Google wasn't very helpful. This neighborhood is pretty quaint." He looked out the window. "Yeah, no, it's interesting." I waited for him to break from his stare. He wasn't being particularly hostly. I interrupted with more small talk. "Well, how are you settling in? How's life been going?" He leaned back in his seat and scratched the back of his head. "Yeah, I'm settling in fine. It's been busy. Definitely spend most of my time thinking about work." "Yeah, tell me more about that. You were pretty tight-lipped about it on text." Is the job everything that you had hoped it to be? Not exactly. I poker-faced through the uncomfortable silence, hoping that he would say more. He finally continued, it's definitely not what I studied. Nothing at all like what they had pitched me either. It's pretty out there. Well, what are you doing exactly? He hesitated. I could tell that he was escaping up into his own head. I think my coffee needs a bit more cream. BRB. He left the room again. Yeah, he's the kind of guy to say the acronym out loud. I pondered in his absence. Dude was a secret, super genius who could land a gig just about anywhere. A job that required him to move to the middle of nowhere and leave his loved ones behind had to be nothing short of astounding. But hearing him now, he just seemed tired, uninspired even. I wondered how long this move was really going to last. I stopped myself from ruminating further. This was too much honest reflection for what was supposed to be a vacation. A selfie was in order. I pulled out my phone, coffee in hand, and Bryce's welcoming abode in the background. I already had the caption for the Instagram story. Finally found him, you guys. I waited for him to round the corner. He emerged. I clicked. Snap. The light flashed to immortalize a pretty derpy-looking me and Bryce, mud caught in mid-fall, with his arm outstretched violently screaming, "No!" Paralyzed by his yell, I turned to clock the shattered mug and liquid coffee beans, spilling onto his hardwood floor. Crap, I looked up at him. Sorry, what happened? Did I just... His attention turned from me to the front door. He ran to it, checked the lock, and then pulled at the door as if to test its integrity. He did the same with the balcony door, muttering to himself along the way. I'm so stupid. Of course she was gonna take a picture. Why would I be so careless? I should have known that I should have frickin' known. Hey, I walked up to him. It was only a selfie, Bri. I'm sorry if I caught you off guard. He took a deep breath and then spoke in a tone that was very unbecoming of the Bryce that I knew. It's my fault. I'm the moron. You always take pictures. It's what you do. And what did I do? I left you alone twice. I screwed us. I'm sorry, but you're being incredibly rude right now. Explain yourself. A stern look. We're not supposed to take photos. I raised my eyebrows. Not supposed to take photos of what? Your house? Anything at all in the town. I became convinced this was all an elaborate bit that he had been planning in anticipation of my arrival. I chuckled accordingly. That sounds stupid. A touch of softness returned to his eyes. I was hoping that I would get a chance to ease you into the explanation. But God, there's no easy way to break this to you, is there? What on earth are you talking about? His glance returned to the living room window. He stared out of it for what felt like an eternity. I idled with him, secretly wondering if my friend had become a head case since I last saw him. He had never shown signs of being paranoid or volatile, but maybe something had changed since he had moved. The sound of soft tapping against the window wasn't immediately obvious. When I finally noticed it, I saw a silhouette in the front yard below. Someone, or rather, something was outside, stretching and reaching to try to peer into our elevated living room window. Hide behind the sofa, said Bryce. Are you for real? Do it, now. The desperation in his voice was convincing. I begrudgingly followed the orders and crouched against the end of the sofa that I was just sitting on. I peeked ever so slightly to watch Bryce approach the window. There's nothing here for you, Bryce yelled at the stranger in the front yard. A beat of silence. The figure outside slowly lifted its hands, clutching a crumpled piece of paper between them, which it then pressed against the window. It was the selfie that I had just taken. Instinctively, I laughed. It took a few seconds for logic to flood my brain and for me to wonder how on earth a stranger had a printout of a photo that I just took. That isn't ours. No photos were taken here. The photo disappeared from view. Then the entity raised a single finger, tapping the window and pointing in my direction. No one else is here. Bryce held his ground for a moment, and then he closed the curtains. He sat beside me on the living room floor and placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. I was in denial. How was that even? Shh, Bryce interrupted. He'll be gone soon. Minutes passed and the tapping finally subsided. Like I said, Bryce broke the silence. I was hoping we would get a second to settle in first. How does somebody even do that? Like, technologically, how the heck could somebody do that with my phone? I don't get it. I'm gonna need you to calm down for a second. Bryce, what the heck is going on? With a grimace and a restless shuffle, he struggled to find the right words. So, he finally spoke. Let's rewind a bit. I moved to a new town for a job that I could not turn down. Right? When I got here, I knew pretty much immediately that something was very wrong. First, I thought that I was renting this place, but when I arrived, there was a deed taped to the front door signed in my name. My boss for the job I hadn't even started yet stopped by after, congratulating me on the role in the new place. He told me that my pay was going to be much higher than initially discussed, but that the scope of the role would also be way different. I asked him to explain what he meant, and he just said that I would figure it out over time. He was insistent that if I did whatever he asked in a timely manner, that I would live a safe and fulfilling life. And so, for some strange reason, you then thought it would be a great idea to text me to come here. No, I never texted you. I never texted anyone. I ignored everybody's calls, messages, everything. I didn't want anybody to get sucked up into this nonsense with me. But I guess it didn't matter anyways. Something reached out to you pretending to be me, which means that something wants you here. I tensed up. So,
Hey.
we should get the heck out of here
Hey,
then, right?
go.
Why didn't you
Go.
ever leave?
Go. If you're gonna be annoying, go. Go.
Funny
Go.
enough,
Hey,
I
no,
almost
get out
did.
of here.
But then somebody explained the ambulances to me. Ambulances? Yeah, they should be here soon. Bryce put a finger to his lips. The room went quiet for minutes until the distant roars of an ambulance reached our ears. Bryce got up and moved to the kitchen window. I followed. The siren's blare grew louder and clearer. Outside the window, we could see it approaching. It turned a corner and parked on the road only a few houses away. And then I saw it. The back door of the ambulance opened up, and out stepped a man cloaked in thick garb from head to toe. He pulled a stretcher out the back door, then another, and then another. All of the stretchers had people on them, people whose heads had been completely pulverized. Clumps of crimson red flesh and cartilage where faces should have been. Once all of the stretchers had been pulled out and left on the road, the cloaked man re-entered the ambulance from the back and then closed the doors. The siren blasted again and the vehicle drove off. Bry, what's going on? Why am I freaking out? Bryce just stared at the stretchers on the street. They were gently rolling off in different directions. Oh man, he said, noticing a particular demolished body on one of the stretchers. I like that guy. We went grocery shopping together one time. Who are those people? The people who tried to leave. That's what happens to them. And they're just left on the street? Sometimes. Other times they're brought to the incinerator, or buried or chopped up, or occasionally dropped off at someone's house. I was on the verge of a full-blown panic attack. Instinctively, I pulled out my phone and queued up the numbers at 911. Wait, Rose. You don't want to do that. Rose, stop. but his words bounced right off me. My brain was on autopilot. My body was moving on its own now. I ran into one of the rooms, slammed the door shut, and then leaned against it. He knocked violently. Rose, you don't know what you're doing. Please hang up. Please. Everything was fine. I had a half-baked plan in my mind. I would call the number and then ask the operator to transfer me to a different county. The NYPD. They would know what to do. I hit call and I waited for an answer. Finally. 911, what is your emergency? Hi, I replied. I need to get connected to the closest police department outside this jurisdiction. Maybe New York. Sure. Can you let me know what your emergency is? Bryce pounded with even more force. Yeah, so there was an ambulance and it stopped on our street and it had bodies in it. Dead bodies on stretchers that looked like they had been completely messed up. And then the bodies were just thrown on the street and... Oh, right, and sorry. These were people who were trying to leave town. What? I'm sorry, could you say that again? Yes. Were the bodies in the stretchers people who tried to leave the area? She said the last 6 words slowly, as if she thought I was stupid. Stunned, I tried to redirect her back to the point. There was also a man who showed up in our yard. He had a picture of me. There's no way that he could have had a picture of. Right, and sorry, did you take a photo before this man showed up? What? Bryce was seemingly ramming the door with his whole body now. I was struggling to keep it closed. Where are you now? We can send someone to you immediately. No thanks. Are you sure, ma'am? I promise it'll be fun. Horrified, I hung up. I released my hold on the door and it burst open, sending me tumbling backwards onto the floor. Bryce entered, looming above me in anger. You didn't tell them where we were, did you? I desperately shook my head. No, I didn't. He sighed in relief as if his whole body were exhaling with him. Thank God. He addressed me with a disappointed dad intensity. You have to stop doing that, like please. If they called somebody to this place, you could have gotten us killed. Or even worse. I've heard stories, man. The people in this neighborhood talk. I stopped myself from speculating on what worse meant. Where are we, Bri? I asked. What is this? I don't know. He wore exasperation on his face. I could tell that he was at his own breaking point. I got up and gave him a hug, more for my sanity than anything else. As I held him, the sinking, skin-crawling sensation of feeling trapped consumed me. I wanted to sob, but I just couldn't. We returned to the living room and tried our best to settle in again. I'm trying, he said, to piece together exactly what's going on here. I have some idea of the things that we should avoid doing, but still, there are a lot of question marks. I said nervously. I took a quick peek outside and spotted a sign. Shaped like an arrow pointing to the left, it read, "Exit this way." And before I could ask more questions, I heard his phone vibrate. He checked it and then sighed. They have another job for me, he said. Another job? Yeah, a task that I was hoping I could avoid for some time. Wish me luck. He went back to his room, and when he emerged, he was wearing a cloak not too dissimilar to the one that the ambulance driver was wearing. He left some time ago now. He gave me some clear directives before stepping out. Keep the doors locked until he's back and try not to panic. I'll try not to overthink the second one. He also showed me a special hand signal that he had used when he comes back. He told me that I should under no circumstances open the door until he flashes that gesture. It's a good thing that he told me, because only an hour after he left, it felt like he had already returned. He's standing at the door right now, softly knocking while wearing a wide smile on his face. He hasn't flashed the signal yet, so I'll probably hold off on letting him in. Imposter Bryce, as I penned him, stuck around for a couple of hours before shuffling off to God knows where. Once he was gone, I took refuge in the bedroom that looked the least worn, and tried my best to get some shut-eye. Needless to say, I slept like the opposite of a baby. Ambulance sirens sung throughout the night. Occasional sounds of shuffling in the backyard bushes rang in my ear. Struggling to fall asleep, I got up to look out of the bedroom window. Outside, the street was empty, save for a man a block away hugging a lamppost and looking right up at me. The night in my attempts to rest became a blurry, half-awake, half-asleep haze. Eventually, the sound of knocking at the front door interrupted my drowsy nap. I left the bedroom and approached the sound, and I looked through the door's peephole, expecting some horrifying sight or nightmarish creature. It was Bryce. He was flashing the same hand signal that we had agreed upon earlier. After a minute of gearing up, I assessed the bravery needed to open the door. He entered, and to my great relief, didn't shapeshift into a warlock and rip my face off. Cool of him. He didn't say much, not even a hello. His face wore misery, and his weird culty Snuggie outfit had splatters of blood on it. He depressingly sauntered to his room, mumbling incoherently under his breath. Weirdly, having him home now was enough to temporarily override the PTSD that I was feeling from the last 24 hours that I went through. I went back to the room, and within minutes, I was lights out. When I woke up, it felt like I had emerged from the best sleep that I had ever had, to the point that it took me a good 20 seconds to remember exactly where I was, and for the misery to creep back in. I looked at the clock and saw that the time was only 7:15 a.m. I was flabbergasted. No way that was only an hour of sleep. I entered the dining room, and Bryce was already breakfast ready. Plates were set out on the table. Does time work differently here? I asked, taking a seat. Bryce sized up my outfit. I was still wearing my clothes from yesterday. I should have remembered to lend you some PJs. My bad. I grabbed a fork full of scrambled eggs. I was hoping that he had started curbing his habit of avoiding my questions. I took a bite. Not bad. Time, he ruminated. I'm not sure. There's enough weird stuff happening here that I don't really dwell on it. Fair enough, I said. So, I was instructed to bring you with me to today's job. I almost spat egg all over the table. Bring me explicitly. Yep. He turned his phone around and leaned across the table to show me. Well, I'll be. There it was, wrapped in a gray bubble, the most recent text in a thread. This morning you will visit the Parker Group building and audit their operations. Bring Rosalind Beckett with you. I sighed. I assume I have to come because not following the rules here is a bad idea. He shot me ungracefully with his finger guns. You're catching on, friendo. I decided not to protest. After yesterday's shenanigans, it was probably best that I followed Bryce's lead. We promptly finished up breakfast. Bryce basically made a beeline to his car in the driveway after. Dude took his job seriously. I joined him outside, half afraid that a banshee would jump out of the bushes or something, but things were relatively tame, actually. The only thing out of the ordinary was a gathering taking place in the Victorian mansion across the street. Through their window, I noticed a gallery of well-dressed socialites, all sitting in a circle and reading a book together. A book club at this hour. I rode shotgun in Bryce's Audi. When the heck did you get this? I asked, as he drove us to these skyscrapers in the town center. So, what's the escape plan? I asked. I've always been bad at small talk. I'm sorry. I'm assuming everybody in the town is trying to get the heck out of Dodge. What's the strategy? Oh, you know, a friendly reminder that your head gets pulverized if you try to escape, Rose. Or did you already forget about yesterday? Yeah, but isn't anyone theory crafting? Figuring out some way to break out of here? Yeah, I think we're all still in the learning on how not to die phase of things, he replied. Disappointing. Is it only going to take me a few days to become just as resigned to things as Bryce is? I distracted myself from the melancholy by carefully eyeing the buildings that we drove past. Library, convenience store, sex shop, convenience store, auto parts, steakhouse, another convenience store. This place is weird. So, I said, you ever been to this building before? Nope. Uh-huh, and what about auditing? Is that a thing you do often? First time. But you know what to do, right? Yep, I was given clear directions. Go inside and tell them why we're visiting. Let them explain what they do and let them take us where they need to take us. If anyone has any concerns, we say that we're friends of Meredith Lane. Right, and who is Meredith Lane? No clue, he said. Oh, right, another rule. Avoid small talk with the employees. We closed in on the high-rises. Bryce slowed to find parking. We stepped out of the car, the illumined building ahead. We walked under the protective canopy as stone pillars framed our path. I noticed groups of people lurking behind the columns and peeking their heads out. Most were glaring, some were smiling. Bryce, I'm kind of scared. No, don't worry about them, they won't do anything. Okay. When we reached the entrance, the motion sensor sliding doors parted gracefully, inviting us in. We crossed into the lobby. A very sharp-dressed greeter approached us. Why, hello there, sir, and look, you brought company. Here for an audit, Bryce said briskly. Yes, of course. The folks up on 9 were expecting you. Great, we'll be on our way. Bryce, all business, walked to the elevator and pressed the button to call. He stared at a framed picture that hung on the wall between the lifts. It was a portrait of a stunning luxury car. God, that is a sweet ride, he said. Ding, the elevator arrived. We slipped into the steel box and Bryce pressed the button for the 9th floor. As it went up, I mean, this isn't too bad. You always wanted to work in a fancy tech office, right? I asked. Yeah, I guess I did. Just took getting trapped in this freaky town for that dream to pan out now. I laughed. A little glimmer of our old buddy cop dynamic was back, albeit under non-ideal circumstances. He pulled out his phone, seemingly to check the text thread that he had with his boss. Alright, so let's recap on the rules. If anybody asks, friends of Meredith Lane. Meredith Lane, I echoed. We'll explore, ask the folks what they do, go wherever they ask us to. We'll take notes. We won't make small talk with them. Pretty simple. Got it, I nodded. The lift trembled momentarily as it settled on the 9th floor, and then the doors opened. We emerged onto a floor that had a pretty tacky-looking decor, I have to say. It looked dated, unbecoming of the prestigious-looking building that it was housed in. We sauntered down the hallway, flanked by boardrooms on both sides. It sounded like busy meetings were underway. Bryce entered one of the rooms, seemingly at random. I trailed behind. Inside, a group of gentlemen, all dressed in pristine white shirts, black ties, and sharp dress bands, sat around an aged mahogany table. Looks like they all got the dress memo for today. They momentarily paused their discussion, looking up at us with puzzled stares. Here for the audit, Bryce announced curtly. You can carry on. Bryce produced a small notebook and pen out of his coat pocket and the professionals hesitated briefly before resuming the conversation. So, as I was saying, one of the men said, we finished the design for the next convenience store. Murmured nods and hmms echoed around the table. We need a clear, open road leading to the convenience store. Another contributed. No congestion whatsoever. I'll oversee that. Again, a chorus of agreement from the room. And what about blood? Another man interjected. Heads turned in his direction. If there's a significant amount of blood outside the convenience store, he seemingly clarified, we'll need assistance to manage it. The pattern continued. Murmurs of affirmation shared between the employees. I had to ask myself, what in the ever-loving crap were they talking about? Yet my confusion went unshared. Bryce continued to scribble in his notebook unfazed. I wondered if Bryce had noticed the man seated at the end of the table, blood pouring from his eyes onto his fancy shirt. The man with a disturbing smile who kept whispering incessantly. Blood outside the convenience store. Blood inside the convenience store. Thankfully, or maybe regrettably, Bryce seemed oblivious to him. Finishing his note-taking, he left the room and I followed. We proceeded down the hallway. Seriously, how the heck does this place not wig you out? That's simple, he replied. I'm desensitized. I am now fully dead inside. Great. We approached the kitchen at the end of the corridor. As we did, the clack of a foosball game filled our ears. We stepped inside to see two players, momentarily distracted, stopping to turn their gaze towards us. Nearby, a man pouring half and half into his coffee froze as he clocked our entrance. You're, he started. Here for an audit, Bryce cut in. Their eyes remained fixed on us, silent and questioning. We're friends of Meredith Lane, Bryce clarified. Slowly, these strangers chuckled, their laughter gradually escalating into a roar. Yeah, right, friends with Meredith Lane, said one. Yeah, you hate her, chimed another. You despise her, the man with the coffee creamer tagged. What are they on about? I whispered out the side of my mouth to Bryce. And don't overthink it, nothing here makes any sense, he murmured. He stepped forward. Alright, that's enough joking around. Why don't you all tell me a bit about what you do? After a brief silence, the coffee man was the first to speak. I'm a firefighter, sir. A firefighter working in a skyscraper, yeah, right. The woman at the foosball table spoke next. I'm an ambulance driver. She noticed the look of fright on my face and clarified. Oh, don't worry, dear, I only drive. A wiry smile crept up on the face of the man on the other side of the foosball table. I'm a police officer, occasionally a 911 operator too. I gulped and tried my best to play it cool. I looked away pretending that I was admiring the decor in the room. Bryce, doing his part, eagerly scribbled into his notebook. He lifted his head when he was done. Great. Anything you would like to show us? The foosball playing officer crept closer. Friends with Meredith Lane, hey. Yep, replied Bryce. Would you like to see her? Sure. The officer led the way, opening a door to reveal another expanse of hallway. We trailed closely behind. The trek was longer than I expected. With each step, the white walls of the building started blistering and peeling. Deeper down the path, the overhead lights were now swaying and broken, casting red shadows onto the wall. Through the damp and moldy, we approached the end of this now dark corridor, reaching a heavy iron door that creaked slightly open. Blood-curdling shrieks could be heard from inside. Our guide to this destination nodded and then turned to leave. Have fun, he called out, retracing his steps and disappearing down the hallway. Bryce stepped through the door first. I trepidatiously tiptoed behind. The screaming stopped the second that we had entered. The smell of coal and old machinery assaulted my senses as I eyed what I knew to be the likely source of the screams. It was a woman. She was tied to a chair with metal chains. Her body looked contorted, twisted, broken in ways that a person couldn't be. Bones visibly protruded from open wounds all around her. Jagged metal jutted from her chest, neck, and legs. Something about her form didn't make any sense. A man in a thick cloak was crouched beside the woman. "Meredith, it looks like you have some visitors." My face betrayed my attempt to pretend that any of this was normal. Side-eyeing Bryce, he didn't look so great either. The man in front of us remained focused on the chain beam. "What do we say when we have visitors, Meredith?" A strained, croaky, empty voice left the woman. "We say hello," she grumbled barely. Bryce pulled out his notebook. "Here for an audit. Can you explain what you do?" "Really, Bryce? Still just a business about all this?" The crouched man tilted his head to address us. "Of course. As you can see, I manage Meredith Lane. Let me demonstrate." He placed a hand on what was left of Meredith's shoulder. "Meredith, is your leg broken?" "No, my leg is fine," she said, spitting blood between breathing. Her leg was most certainly broken. Thrice broken, in fact. The least leg-looking leg that I had ever seen. "Is your chest impaled?" he asked. "No, my chest is not impaled," she groaned. A giant piece of metal poked out from her ribs, but sure. Let's gaslight the poor woman. "Is your mouth full of blood? Are you choking?" She struggled to speak again. Blood pooled as the words left her mouth. "No." "No one here is the best one," he said, enthusiastically turning to us before asking his final question. "Meredith, are you alive?" It took her longer to respond to this one. She lifted her neck ever so slightly to look at us. Clearly, she was struggling. But there was something else in her gaze, too. Sorrow, wistfulness, regret. "I'm alive," she said, quite lucidly. The cloaked man stood up from his couch, exceedingly cheerful now. "Now isn't that something?" he proclaimed. Bryce just scratched into the notebook. He didn't say a word. I, on the other hand, was mortified. I had just about reached my threshold. I was seconds from puking. I softly stepped back, exiting the room through the iron door for a much-needed reprieve. Bryce didn't seem to notice, thank God. Back out in the hallway, I noticed a rather nervous-looking man pacing back and forth. After a moment, he came up to me. "How are you holding up?" he asked. I stuck to the rules. "I'm here for an audit." He looked disappointed. "Of course you are. Let me guess. No photos, no small talk. Friends with Meredith Lane." "Huh?" Nah, I wasn't falling for it. "That's right, I am friends with Meredith Lane, and that is why I'm here." I enunciated clearly, speaking slowly and thoroughly as one usually does when they're lying. He scratched his head and then turned to leave. He looked back at me once more before doing so. "You know, just once I wish I could talk to somebody who found all this as horrifying as I do." I pursed my lips. "Ah, screw it," he said. "I'll figure some way out of this nightmare. Talking to emotionless robots all day." He muttered, walking off. "Wait," I called out. He stopped and then turned. "Let's talk," I said as quietly as I could. He stepped back towards me. He came with an air of nervous desperation. "Holy crap, an actual conversation," he said. "Look, I'm not sure how much time we have, but I have a working theory about this place that I think might piece everything together." "Spill." He leaned into my ear and whispered. He didn't want anybody else to hear this. "Sweetheart, you know you're not supposed to break the rules." He gripped my neck with one of his hands and covered my mouth with the other. "We have to follow the rules." I struggled to get away, but he was much more powerful than he looked. We. I could feel my breath disappearing. "And this is how I die, isn't it?" He squeezed it down on my larynx with all of his might. What a stupid way to die. But then the pressure released. I gasped for breath as the attacker staggered backwards. I guess not. My assailant was recoiling in horror at the sight of Bryce. Emerging from the boiler room, Bryce quickly moved to support me, preventing me from collapsing to the floor. The man backpedaled to his feet and fled down the corridor. Bryce took a step as if to chase him and then hesitated and turned back to me. God, are you okay? Bryce asked with concern. No, not really, I said, coughing. I'm sorry, I'm such a dunce. Bryce squeezed my hand reassuringly. Hey, you're okay, you'll settle in with time. As I gathered my bearings, I heard Bryce's phone buzz again. He checked the text. I guess our job's done for the day, he said. We can go home now. I didn't let go of his hand as we walked down the corridor. How'd you scare that dude away? Yeah, once you've been here long enough, you find a way to maneuver the danger. We took the elevator down. Once we were in the lobby, we made a beeline for the exit. Just as we stepped through these sliding doors to the outside, I heard the greeter call from behind. Please visit us again when you get the chance, Mr. Mayor. Bryce visibly winced at the greeter's call. Mr. Mayor, I asked him, you're the mayor of this place? He shrugged it off as we walked to the car. It's just the job they gave me. We can chat more about it later. The drive home was quiet. Between Bryce's surprise role as mayor and his strange midnight job from last night, a swirl of confusion settled in my stomach. Still riding shotgun with him, I felt safer than I would have without him. But one thing was clear now, more than before. We couldn't stay here. I needed to find a way out for us. When we got home, Bryce asked for a few hours to de-stress before my barrage of questions. He spent most of it reading a gothic mystery novel on the sofa, as well as retreating into his room to do some private journaling. The evening settled in and Bryce finally scuttled into my room. The mayor, huh? When were you planning to tell me that was what you did here? He threw his arms up in exasperation. Look, there it was. He struggled. I don't know. I'm not sure if I ever would have felt comfortable mentioning it, if I'm being honest. I never chose the job. They gave it to me when I got here, and since then, I've just been trying to get by. I only had one glaring question on my mind at this point. Everyone in that building said that you hated Meredith Lane. And people here say stupid stuff, and literally none of that is. Bryce, just please tell me you didn't order for that poor woman to get chained and tortured like that. Bryce stared at me aghast. Do you really actually think I'm capable of something like that? Of course, in the moment I told him no. But as I lay there in bed that night, the question spun around in my head. Was Bryce capable of great evil? The guy that I had known my whole life, in no way. The guy who's been trapped in this demented town for months now. I'm not sure. This place could ruin anyone after enough time, couldn't it? I stopped myself there, and I turned my brain off for the sake of some shut-eye. In the morning, I checked the clock on my bedside table. 7:15 a.m. That's twice now. I entered the dining room. Bryce had leftover breakfast on the table for me, as sweet of him. With it came a note. I called in for an early job. I'm helping make candles today, whatever that means here. I know it's in your DNA to be brash, but please, don't do anything stupid while I'm gone. Stay home, and if for some reason you decide to wander out, stay far, far away from the backyard. Bad things happen the closer that you get to it. I took a bite of my toast. Me, brash? Why, I never. After finishing up the morning spread, I sauntered to the living room window and I looked outside. Once again, folks were gathered inside the Victorian mansion across the street. They sat in a circle, each of them with a book in hand. This time, however, their attention was focused on the TV in the room. Something playing that I couldn't quite make out from my vantage point. Someone rose to turn the TV off. and then they all looked at me in unison and smiled. What? Without missing a beat, they shifted their focus back to the books. One of the men began to read aloud while the rest followed intently. Well, one thing was for certain. I'd rather be chained up like Meredith Lane than forced to join a disturbing reading group here. I pondered what to do with my day. Really, not everybody in town was preposterously dangerous. At least one of the 80 or so convenience store clerks must have had some sort of insight on how to escape, right? But wait, Bryce wasn't home again, and he had a journal. Did I dare? It would have been an invasion of privacy, sure, but desperate times, desperate measures. Sometimes you gotta break some rules, yada yada yada. I entered his room. After a bit of scanning, I located the journal that he had stashed in one of the drawers. I flipped to the latest entry, hoping to find something interesting. At the top of the page was yesterday's date. Underneath, a few bullet points lazily scribbled. What was with the portrait of the car in the Parker building yesterday? The guy who attacked Rose, he looked familiar. Who is Meredith Lane? And why did I kind of like seeing her get tortured? Wait, what? The third line stunned me. It felt like a bullet had gone through my stomach. Suddenly, my pocket vibrated sharply. A text. I pulled my phone out and read the first new message that I had received since I had arrived here. It was from a number I didn't recognize, and it simply read, "Be outside in 1 minute. Your job for the day is 10 bodies." You have got to be kidding me. Was this a test? Was I supposed to ignore it, or was this a task that I had to follow? Does this town really want me to kill people? A knock at the door, and then another and another. I stashed the journal back into the drawer, now with bigger fish to fry than figuring out Bryce's inner workings. I searched my mind for a smart thing to do here, and it came up empty. Rudderless, I walked to the front door's peephole and I checked outside. A man in a Hawaiian shirt stood idly by the door. He looked bored. Further out, an ambulance sat parked on the street. Is he gonna kill me? As if reading my mind, he spoke up. "Not gonna kill you, newbie." I didn't respond. "You're on the route today," he added. Could I actually trust him? He looked at his watch. "Look, it's your life. Do what you gotta do, but bad things do happen when you turn down a job. So I would strongly suggest." I swung the door open, raised my fists, and shot at my meanest glare. That should scare him. He chuckled. "It's gonna take more than a punch to kill me, I'm afraid." He pivoted and began descending the stairs. "All right, let's head out." I followed him. He casually paced towards the ambulance's rear doors, opened them, and stepped inside. I peeked in behind him, anticipating the horrifying sight of piles and piles of dead bodies. Instead, the ambulance looked surprisingly ordinary. To the left, a white bench stretched along the wall. A rather striking woman was seated, dressed in a cloak that was all too familiar to me at this point. The Hawaiian-shirted man settled in beside her. On the opposite side, a pile of single-fold stretchers were haphazardly arranged against the wall. Dominating the center, a modest table was firmly anchored to the floor. Atop it sat an eye-catching candle and a worn black digital camera. I climbed into the back. Without missing a beat, the mystery man slipped on a cloak similar to the woman's and handed me another just like it. "Your uniform for when you're on the job," he clarified. He shut the back doors, struck a match to light the candle, and moments later, the vehicle set into motion. I begrudgingly put on the bulky cult outfit. I guess I'm a part of the club now. Unsure of what to do next, I ran with an icebreaker. "So, is our job," I said slowly, "to, bash people's heads in or something?" The man and woman looked at each other, eyebrows raised in shared amusement. They started laughing. "Oh, you newcomers," the man said, wiping away a tear. "That's so good." "Yes," the woman tagged. "We use terrifying black magic rituals to punish all those who try to leave. And sometimes when the magic doesn't work, we resort to the ancient art of stick throwing. She nodded. Never underestimate a well-aimed twig. Dorky giggles permeated their sarcastic ribbing. It was annoying. Look, clearly you two are having a ball right now, but can you just say it plainly? You don't kill people, right? Right, the woman responded more seriously. As some of us just want to get through the cursed day and go home. Fair enough, lady. It was an interesting ambulance ride. I learned their names, Matthias and Svetlana. They were a couple, actually. I'm afraid that I only caught on once I saw them sneak a kiss, though. They spent most of the ride home doing some pretty nonsensical stuff. With a deck of cards, they played a demented version of Go Fish that I couldn't fully understand the rules of. Later, Matthias broke into song, belting what sounded like three vaguely familiar pop tunes randomly mashed together. Svetlana knew it and sang along, which I guess is what mattered. Finally, Svetlana pitched a game where we would all ask each other increasingly personal questions. I bowed out, using the excuse that I was still jarred by the no small talk rule in the Parker Group building. The two of them passed questions back and forth. What's the funniest thing that ever happened to you? When was the last time that you felt super embarrassed? And then, rather innocently, from Svetlana to Matthias, what was the happiest moment of your life? He looked back at her wistfully. The day that I met you. She held her hand to his cheek and they shared a genuinely loving gaze. Ah, barf. Too much. Please make it stop. The ambulance screeched to a halt. The driver called out, "All right, body retrieval, let's go." My colleague shifted to a more somber tone. They opened the rear exit and stepped out, and I followed. We had stopped at a house. There on the grass before us, a man lay dead, a camera in his hand. His twisted neck, a contorted body, and protruding bones gave me flashbacks to Meredith. Two police officers stood over him. They regarded us as we walked up. I took a photo of himself. A sucker's way out, one said. The other officer chimed in. You gotta question the logic. And did he think this would somehow be a shorter death? The first mimed taking a photo, voice high-pitched in imitation. He was probably like, this will be painless. Click. Wait, why am I not dead? Wait, what was that? Bah. Matthias pulled a stretcher from the ambulance, setting it next to the lifeless figure while the officers laughed. Together, he and Svetlana softly lifted the body onto it. What the? Why are all of you so dang gloom? One of the officers said, and he turned to me. You especially. Svetlana and Matthias lifted the stretcher and brought it into the ambulance. The officers closed their distance with me. You're pretty tense, the second officer remarked. Maybe living with the mayor is starting to take its toll on you. Matthias called from the ambulance. All right, let's go, Rose. But I couldn't move. The collective stare of the officers had me petrified. The first officer leaned in closer. I'm sure you know the mayor is terrified of cops now, don't you? He has a whole page about it in that diary of his that you snooped in this morning. How could they possibly know? What? Do you not realize that we see everything? Do you actually think your rule breaking is going unnoticed? I backed away from them as if they were two lurking panthers. No sudden movement, stay calm, deliberate. Any misstep could spell doom. Gently, I felt for the edge of the ambulance before hoisting myself through the rear doors. I closed them behind me. Mercifully, the ambulance rolled forward. I settled in my seat. As the fear subsided, involuntarily my eyes swelled up. Matthias placed a hand on my shoulder. Svetlana gently touched my arm. Don't worry about those creeps, said Matthias. Yeah, they won't do anything to you. They're all just talk. I appreciated the gesture. Unfortunately, it was hard to feel great with the grim sight of a mangled corpse right in front of us. Matthias shook his head at the sight. Even with how horrible all of this is, I'll never understand doing something like that to yourself. Svetlana gazed at the stretcher, her eyes full of compassion. Perhaps he just wasn't strong enough to handle it anymore. Matthias shrugged. Despite some weak attempts at small talk from all three of us, it was hard to shake the dismal air now permeating the ambulance. The ride went on for a good while until... Destination, the driver called. The vehicle jolted to a stop. Svetlana pushed the doors open, revealing a vast forest expanse.